At last, a revolutionary hide identification system that gives you clear, permanent, individual hide identification. This video was made prior to the implementation of the team login. When the operator screen is first shown, the stop-start button must be pressed to allow stamping to commence. If it is pressed again, stamping will be stopped. So we've got the number in the day, number of batches in the day so far, and the number in this batch. And when it does a stamp, the number changes. When the batch is finished, press the change the source code. A numeric keypad comes up and you can put in the next source code. And the number in the batch goes back to 0. And now you're starting on the 6th batch and there's 1 in it. At the start of each day you should do the test. You press that to begin the test, and the test takes place over 2 stamps. The first is to stamp all of the horizontals and none of the vertical cutters, and the second stamp is to stamp all of the vertical cutters and none of the horizontal cutters, and that's to make sure that the stamper is working correctly. If you want to have numbers and letters in the source code, there is another keypad which you bring up by pressing that button, where you can have any combination of letters and numbers that you want. So that will now stamp DT6. It's the 7th batch and there's 1 in it. It tells you that you're stamping hides. If you want to start another batch either of the same source code or a different source code but of a different species, you can press the relevant button and it indicates to you what you are stamping. So this time we're going to stamp goats, and it's the start of a new batch because it's a new species. It's now batch number 8 and there's 1 hide in it. There are a number of functions in the admin area which are password secured. Firstly, there's totals of all of the days for the last week and how many hides were stamped on those days. Secondly, there's a facility to stamp any number that you want to stamp. This is probably mainly used in trials. To turn the any number stamping on, you press that button. This then shows you that you can choose to stamp any number. You can then choose whatever you'd like to stamp, and when you go back to the operating screen it will stamp that number. It won't count the hides as being stamped. And to turn off the any number facility, you press the button up here where it's showing you that to have caution, the stamping is in any number mode, and you press that and you go back to the normal operation mode to where you were batch number 8 with 2 so far in the batch. Further in the administration area, you can change the timers. There are 3 timers that control the stamp. There's a time for the solenoids to come into place and get the valves open. There's a time for the pressure to be on, and there's a time for the return timer to withdraw the cutters. And you can change those by this numeric keypad, and I want to change that 40 to 50, so I put in 50, I confirm the changes. Now there's 50 over there, I know I've got the new times. Further, in some cases you need to stamp a hide twice. This is where it's going to be cut into sides and you want 1 stamp on each side, and when you turn the dual mode stamp on, you find that for each stamp you need to do 2 stamps for it to count. So this is the dual stamp first stamp, which is not counted, and this is the dual stamp second stamp, which is counted. Go back to the admin screen and turn it back to the single mode. The other facility you have here is that you can make the stamp face the edge of the piece of leather or face away from the edge, and you do that by pressing that button, and that means the stamp is then upside down and in reverse order from the way it was stamping before. The other thing in the admin is the total number of stamps that the stamper has done, which are a total of all of the normal stamps and of any test stamps. The other facility is that if the operator does a stamp and that's stamp number 4, and for some reason the operator thinks that the piece of leather wasn't quite put into the jaws properly, you can press a restamp button and then do that stamp again, and it won't be counted as an extra piece of leather, so it doesn't go onto the total. You have here the species that you're stamping, and up here it tells you which orientation the stamp is, whether the stamp's facing away from the edge or whether it's facing the edge. Sometimes in very cold climates, when the oil is very cold in the mornings, it takes a few stamps for the oil to warm up enough to work properly, and sometimes the cutters don't withdraw properly. Then you can press the retract button, and that will take withdraw the cutters back to their fully raised position.